Hey there, everybody. We're gonna go ahead and do a video on how to use GitHub, all that good stuff. And yeah, so first things first, you should have a GitHub account. You can see here I have mine. Um, if you don't have that, pause the video, go make a GitHub account. And you should also download GitHub Desktop. Now you should just be able to Google GitHub Desktop and figure out, where to install this. Shouldn't be too big of a deal. And it doesn't matter where you install it as long as you are able to get a hold of it. The next thing you'll want to do is go to options and make sure you are signed in. I'm going to go ahead and sign out real quick. If you're signed in on the website, when you hit sign in, it should say sign in using your browser. And if you're signed in, it'll take you straight to it and you'll be all good to go. If you're signed in, I mean on the website. So first steps is make an account, sign in on the website, and then download GitHub Desktop, sign in on GitHub Desktop. And that'll make sure that your content is all synced up between the two. Now, I'm going to go to GitHub and I'm going to make a new repository. If you've already done this, then cool, but it's always good to do it multiple times because iteration is key. I'm going to name it our GitHub video repo. All right, now big thing, you'll want this to be public. You can do private, but you're going to have to individually invite people. So, I mean, if you want to go ahead and do that, by all means, but I'm not going to be going in this video how you go ahead and invite people. Nobody's really looking to steal our stuff right now, so I'm going to go ahead and leave this public. We do have to add, we can ignore the README, you don't really need that, and we can ignore the license, but we are going to go ahead and add a git ignore. Most of us, if not all of us, are working in Unity, so if we search Unity, we should be able to click on Unity. Now what this does is Unity has a bunch of files that don't need to be shared, right? Like it's in a project, there's all kinds of files that are just needed on your computer. So this basically makes it so that GitHub ignores those, like the name implies, right? So I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And we will see that I have my new repository. There's my name, there's my repository, and this is all good and happy. Now, this is where things get a little bit tricky and can get confusing. I'm going to go ahead and click this little code drop down, and I'm going to hit open with GitHub Desktop. And it should automatically bring up a window for you. I'm going to go ahead and make a new folder to download this. If you've already made a Unity project, you would want to go and find that Unity project and bring it in here. And I'll show you that in just a second. I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call it GitHub Demo. And I'm going to select that folder. And what this is going to do is it is going to clone the repository into that location. Okay, and you might be like, what the hell does that mean? But if I open this up, and you'll see I've got a lot of repositories. Here's my repository that we're working with right now. If I right click on it and hit show in Explorer, popped up on my other screen, it should open up the file location. Now, if this is your first time doing this, you might not see this .git folder. You'll notice that it's like a little bit dimmer than the rest of our folders here. That's because Windows likes to hide certain files, right? I'm on Windows 11, but if you're on Windows 10, you should still be able to follow along here. Up in this bar here, you should have a view option up at the top. Mine looks like this. I know Windows 10, it looks different. And if I click on this, you should be able to see, I think it's in show, hidden items. Now, if you're on Windows 10, by all means, go Google up how to show hidden files, hidden items. This is where mine is on Windows 11. And if I uncheck this, you'll see that my Git folder goes away. So I'm going to go back and turn that back on. And what this is doing is Windows, like I said, likes to hide a lot of files that a normal user wouldn't need. You're no longer a normal user because you're a developer. So you should always have this. If you get a new computer, turn on hidden items. It's going to save you a lot of time of trying to find things that Windows doesn't think you need to see. But cool. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Unity Hub. and I'm going to make a new project called let's see, where do I want to save this? I'm going to just put it on my desktop. We're going to go new folder, GitHub demo project. We're going to select that. This is going to be called GitHub demo. And let's do 2D because I think that's what all you guys are doing. And it should be a smaller build size, like project size. Now, the way that I'm setting this up, you might be asking, well, why didn't I go put it in the GitHub folder? Because a lot of the time, at least for me, let me move my mic just a tiny bit. I tend to make my Unity projects before I put them up on GitHub, and that technically isn't the best way to do it all the time, but it is. It's just a fact, you know. I tend to do that quite a bit, and you don't see it on my screen right now. It's on my other screen. Unity's opening up. But what we're going to end up doing is deleting this folder that we downloaded. So I have my GitHub video repo. If I go to documents, there's GitHub demo, our GitHub video repo, which you'll notice is the same name as the repository, right? So our GitHub video repo, our GitHub video repo. So once Unity decides to load up, we will be basically moving these files over to the Unity project, because what GitHub Desktop and GitHub in general is tracking is it's tracking this .git folder. It's kind of like it's hooked into, and you can see with me hovering over it, it's literally called folders. It has hooks, info, logs, objects, refs. It's basically the connection between your computer and GitHub. And if we take a step back, what GitHub is supposed to do, and GitHub Desktop is supposed to do, it's supposed to look at what's on the website and what files you're changing and check them, tell you what the differences are, and then give you the opportunity to put up online, you know, any changes that you have. Unity just opened up, so we're going to drag it over here. Looks good, right? Looks like normal Unity. What I'm going to do is I am going to right-click on my scenes folder, show in Explorer. Cool. And then we're going to take this other GitHub repo. So here's my Unity project on the left. Here's my GitHub repo on the right. I'm going to go up to the top level so that you should be seeing your library, your logs, your assets. We don't want to put this stuff in the assets folder. We want to put it where the project is. Okay? So I'm going to take, again, this is on the right, the folder I downloaded off of GitHub. I'm just going to take these and drop them in. All right? And I'm actually, just for the sake of keeping things clean, and, well, there's two reasons. One, to keep things clean, and two, I want GitHub Desktop to actually give me an error in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this entire GitHub demo folder. Don't need it anymore. I got the files I needed off the website, and I put them into the Unity project. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And then you can see in my Unity project, this is my GitHub demo project, GitHub demo. I have my Git folder and my Git ignore. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up GitHub Desktop, and we'll see it's freaking out a little bit. It says can't find our GitHub video repo, which is very sad. It even tells you where was the last place it saw it. So I have a couple options I could remove. That just means like, hey, maybe you deleted it, but you're done with the project. Clone again, which would re-download it to this position, or locate. I'm going to go ahead and hit locate, because if you remember, what I had said was it's looking for that .git folder, right? So if I go and find that, I put it in my GitHub demo project. In my GitHub demo project, I can see there's a Git folder. So if I select this folder, everything should be good, and I'll have some changes. So if I go ahead and pull up, that's not right. Let me go to the right tab. There we go. You'll see that there's nothing up here. There's just this git ignore. It's not talking about the git because that's just kind of like that git folder, because it's just using that as like a marker for where everything should be. You'll see that there's nothing up here. And basically the empty Unity project has all these different things that I can go ahead and push up there. Because right now we took it from it that we took this .git folder, which was just in an empty folder with the git ignore, and put it into a project. So it's like the website has no files. This project has a bunch of files. So that's a difference right there. And you can tell that that's a difference of adding a file because of these green pluses. That generally means that a file was added. A red box means a file was removed. A yellow box would say that the file has changed. So in order to get this up on the website, I'm going to go ahead and let me take a step back. The whole idea of GitHub and like how we're building like our apps and stuff and games and stuff like that is that there is a main branch on GitHub that is like the game. That is the actual game. Okay? And you can see right here, I'm currently on that main branch, right? When I want to make a change, I generally don't want to work on the main branch, especially when you're in a team. If it's just you, then you're fine. You could work on the main branch. But you got to remember that there are other people working constantly on your project, and if you constantly update just the main branch, they're going to have to keep up with all those changes all the time. Generally, you take one feature and you make a different branch for it. So I'm going to go ahead and say create a new branch, and I'm going to name it project upload branch, because this is me uploading the base project, right? Actually, let's call it base project upload. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit create branch. And then I have an option here. I can leave my changes on main, or I can bring my changes to the base project upload branch. I'm going to bring my changes because I want all this. Leaving it, we'll talk about in just a bit, because what that does is it allows you to make like a checkpoint somewhere for you to be like, I just want to leave this all here and let me go check something else out. But for right now, we're going to bring all these changes. You can see there's 31 with us over to this new branch. Now, generally, you'd want to just go ahead and hit publish, and that's going to put this branch up on GitHub. There's nothing in it yet. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just an empty branch that at this point is exactly like the main branch. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And if we go over to GitHub, I'm going to refresh just to be clear. We'll see that now there's two branches. Okay. And if I click this little drop down, I can look at the other branch, and we'll see it's exactly the same. And it even says this branch is up to date with main. So it's exactly the same as the original branch. So if I go to main, there's my branch. If I go to base project upload, it's the same thing. Now we're going to start changing things though. We're going to take all these changes, and what we're going to do is we're going to commit and we're going to push. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and make a change here. I'm going to say, you can see right here it says summary required, because you should always give some kind of information about what your pushes are and what your commits are. So I'm going to say pushing the base project files. And if I wanted to go into more depth, I could go ahead and give it a description. I generally don't. So I'm going to commit that, and then I'm going to push it. Okay. So now if I come back over here, we'll see base project upload branch had a recent push less than a minute ago. If I refresh the page, we'll see, whoa, there's my assets folder, my packages folder, all the stuff. And if I go back over to main, we'll see that it does not have that yet. All right. Now the reason is because let's take a hypothetical example. Let's say that you and a classmate were both working on two scenes, right? Or on the same scene, I'm sorry. If one person makes changes and another person makes changes, and you both try and merge them into main together at the same time, there's a chance that you'll get conflicts. Let's say somebody put the player at 000 and somebody put the player at 10. You got to pick one, right? So generally, this is how we go ahead and we do this. We make our branches, and then when we're done, merge it in. And this is why you don't constantly merge into main, right? Because if you're taking every little change and merging it into main, you get more opportunities for conflicts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit this compare and pull request. And it says, hey, let me get this name. I can give a description, all that good stuff. I'm going to hit create pull request. And it's going to check to see if there are any of those merge conflicts. All right, and we'll go into how we resolve those if they happen in just a bit. Generally, in the industry, what you would do is you would take this link up here, put it in either your Discord server, your Microsoft Teams chat, and have other people review your code. Because what you can do is I can click this files change section, and I can go look at everything that was changed. Now, this looks like a bunch of gobbledygook because it's just those base Unity files, right? It's not any code that we actually wrote, so it's hard to take ownership and actually dissect it. But we'll get into like a couple examples of some code that we can write and go from there. But I know, sorry if you hear the dog in the background tippy tapping, but I know that this is good to go. I don't really have a team I'm working with on this sample project, so I'm just going to go ahead and merge it in. And it's going to be like, are you sure? I'm going to say yes. And it says cool. And a good practice is to delete the branch, so that way then you don't have a whole bunch of empty branches just floating around. Okay. So now if I go back to the code, I'll see that my branch is gone. I'm on main and it has everything that I merged in. Okay. So that's generally the flow. You go ahead and make a change, and we'll do that one more time. I'm going to go ahead and make a new script called to show for GitHub. Okay, got a new script. I'm going to let Visual Studio start. Oh, I guess it's just going to take the screen. Cool, we have a new script. It's all nice and happy. If I go over to GitHub, we'll see that it says I added this. I'm going to, it did not put me on back to the main branch, because locally, even though I deleted this off of GitHub, I do still have this on my computer, this base project upload branch. I'm going to go ahead and go to main, and I think this is actually a good time to show you what this leave my changes on base project upload branch means. I can switch branch and leave the changes there. So now I'm on my main branch. Now, because I'm kind of jumping to two subjects here, right? We left our changes over onto the other branch. And if I look at history, my main branch hasn't gotten any updates. We can see that it got its git ignore, but that's it. And that's because you have to manually pull in any changes. That's why we call it a pull request. When you put out a pull request and you tell your team, hey, this is my pull request, you generally are telling them like, hey, you need to go back to the main branch or the master branch, whatever you're calling it, and pull any new changes. So let me do that. I'm going to hit this fetch origin, and we'll see that I can pull origin. Now it says there's two, but that's just the commit and then the merge. I'm going to go ahead and pull that in, and we'll see my history here update, right? There's where I pushed in all the files on the other branch, and there's where I merged it into main. Okay. So that being said, I know that was kind of like a side tangent, but if you remember, I had left changes on this branch over here. If I go back, they're gone. They're not here, but I do have this stash changes button. GitHub Desktop allows you to basically save your changes and reapply them when you come back. So if I hit this little restore button, if I click on my stash changes, you see that if I go over to Unity, I don't have those changes. It's basically in a state of me not making that script. Okay, so it's gone now because main didn't have it. When I went over here and when I came back to this branch, you can see I have no changes. But if I restore these changes, now it says I have these changes again. When I come back, it comes back. So that's what a stash does. It's kind of like a little hideaway for any changes that you have. And you can see because this branch we deleted it off of the website, it says publish again. So I could publish it again, but I don't really, we're no longer doing any base project upload stuff. So I'm going to go to main and bring them with me this time. Okay. And from main, I'm going to fetch origin, make sure we're all up to date. And I'm going to make a new branch called make show for GitHub script. I'm going to create branch. Not going to leave them here. I'm going to bring them with me. And I'm going to go ahead and publish this and say, I made a script in my summary. I'm going to commit it, and I'm going to push it. Cool. And now if we were to be done, we'd go ahead and we'd make a pull request, and it would be great. And in order to show you guys some scene changes, I am actually going to do that. Let's do that. Or some merge conflicts. So I'm going to create a pull request. It's going to check to see, can we merge this? Says we're good to go. I'm going to merge it. Cool. Now, let's say this is where I really wanted to show you guys. I'm on main. We can see that it's now, if I come over here before pulling, we'll see that the script is gone because main, I haven't updated my version of the main branch yet. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and pull. And we'll see that, hey, I got 2 new scripts. I got one new script. I got that to show for GitHub. So now, let's say that me and another programmer are working in that script. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say Zach makes changes to show for GitHub script. Really long name, but that's okay. And then I'm going to publish it. I'm going to go make some changes to that script. Yeah, reload Visual Studio. And I'm just going to add a variable here called public int, or you know what, let's just do string, and I'm going to call it pizza string equals pizza. Right? Really interesting code, I know. We're going to save that, and we're going to commit it. See our one change, and this is a good view of like how you'll see that it actually tells you what changes were made there. Sometimes if you only have one change, it'll give you a summary just saying, you know, you updated the script. So I'm just going to go ahead and commit it, and I pressed the wrong button, and I'm going to push it. Excellent. Now I'm going to go back to main. And again, I know this is iteration, but when we come back over here, we'll see that on main, that line is gone. But I'm going to go ahead and make another variable called awesome string. And I'm going to save it. I'm going to come back. And now I have a new variable. I'm going to put this on another branch because what we're simulating is another developer working in the same code, right? Evil Zach makes other changes to show for GitHub script. Right? I'm going to bring these changes with me. So effectively now, Zach and Evil Zach have both made changes to this script. If we go to GitHub, and we go to code, we'll notice that here's our 2 branches. I'm going to go to Zach makes changes. We're going to create a pull request, and it should be good to go. Merge it, delete it, all happy. Now, if I go to my local, or if I go over to main and pull, once again, we'll have those changes. If I go over to this branch, my Evil Zach, what I want to do is if I'm working on a branch and people are making changes and updating the main, I want to go to branch up here at the top and hit update from main. And we'll see immediately it says, whoa, there's a problem. Somebody already made changes to show into this script. Okay. Now you get lots of options here. You can abort, you can continue, you can open a command line. You want to be able to hit continue, right? You don't want to abort because you want to do the merge. You want to get all the changes from master, because what this is doing is it's going to allow you to go ahead and merge this in without having any problems. Um, and I just clicked away from it, so now it says, hey, there's a problem. You can't do anything with it. If I go over to Visual Studio, what should happen, and if it doesn't, we could talk about it, you should get something that says arrow, 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 head equals arrow, 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 main. Okay? Because I pulled it from main. This is the head. This is currently what I have on this branch. That you don't have to worry about too much, like this little shenanigans here. What you can do is Visual Studio gives us something called the merge editor. So if I hit this open merge editor button, it'll tell me what exactly the changes are that are a problem. So I could see that over here on main, you see where my cursor is, it says incoming on main, I'm getting a string called pizza. And then if I go over here to my current branch that I'm working on, I get a string called awesome string. Now, this is the point where I go ahead and I talk to my coworker and I say, hey, what was this for? Is it needed? Or were you, da 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 da. And if he says, nope, not needed, I just put it there and go ahead and take mine. If he says, yeah, I need it, and go ahead and take theirs. Or if we need both of ours, I can take both. And you can see the output of what will happen. I get both of them down here. Generally, this is a lot of the times what you're going to end up doing, right? Is taking both and then figuring out, like, does my code still work afterwards? But yeah. And then you can hit this accept merge button. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit accept merge, and now my code has two different versions, or it has both parts, best of both worlds. And now if I come back over to GitHub Desktop, I think you actually have to go back over to Unity. Let's see. View conflicts. I just needed to click on it and say continue merge. Cool. It says successfully merged main into this. And that doesn't mean main is gone. It just means I took all the changes that were on the main branch and put it into mine. And I can push it up. And now I'm good to go. So if I go hit create pull request, it says it's able to merge. And then I can go ahead and merge this in. And everybody, we get both strings. Now, that was a very simple merge conflict to fix, right? Like there weren't too many things we had to change. There are times where you can't resolve it and code gets broken, and that's why you desperately need to communicate with your fellow developers constantly in order to talk about like what is going on, how you're working, and stuff like that. Especially like once you start getting into prefab conflict changes and scene conflict changes, they get harder to debug. And I would encourage you guys, when you run into stuff like this, to reach out to me or one of your other professors to let's walk through how do we fix these kind of merge conflicts until you get to become really good at it. But that should be enough to get you guys up and running with GitHub. If you have any questions, please reach out and we can talk about it more. Thanks, guys.